I thought I had it all figured out: my life, my marriage, my family. At 35, I was a software engineer at a tech startup in Silicon Valley, pulling in a decent six-figure salary. Enough to give my wife, Ava, and our daughter, Sophie, the life they deserved. We lived in a cozy suburban house in San Francisco, the kind with a white picket fence and a view of the bay on clear days. Ava, 32, was a PR specialist, gorgeous, with long blonde hair, emerald green eyes, and a smile that could light up a room. She was the kind of woman who turned heads at every event. The kind of wife I'd always dreamed of. Sophie, our 4-year-old daughter, was the center of my world, with her little giggles and the way she'd crawl into my lap every evening after work, demanding I read her The Very Hungry Caterpillar for the 100th time. I thought we were perfect. I thought we were happy. But I was wrong. It started with small things. The kind of details you don't notice until they start piling up like bricks, building a wall of doubt I couldn't ignore. Ava had always been a social butterfly, the life of every party, but lately, she'd been different. She'd come home late from work events, her makeup smudged, her blouse wrinkled in a way that didn't match the polished image she usually projected. She'd laugh it off, saying she'd had one too many glasses of champagne with clients, but there was a nervous edge to her voice, a flicker in her eyes that made my stomach twist. I'd brush it off, tell myself I was being paranoid. After all, Ava loved me, didn't she? We'd been married for 6 years, and sure, we had our fights, like the time she blew up at me for forgetting our anniversary last year, but we always made up. She always came back to me with that dazzling smile, wrapping her arms around me, whispering, "I love you, Ethan," in a way that made me believe her. Until I didn't. The first real crack in my perfect little world came on a Thursday evening in late March. I'd come home early from the office, a rare treat after weeks of late nights debugging code for a new app launch. The house was quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that feels heavy, like it's hiding something. Sophie was at a sleepover with her best friend from preschool, a little girl named Mia whose mom, Jessica, had become Ava's new bestie. I figured Ava would be home, maybe curled up on the couch with a glass of wine and one of her reality TV shows. The Real Housewives franchise was her guilty pleasure. But the living room was empty, the TV off, the kitchen untouched. I called out for her, my voice echoing in the stillness. "Ava? Babe, you home?" No answer. I checked my phone. No messages, no missed calls. I figured she might be at the gym or grabbing coffee with Jessica, but something felt off. I headed upstairs to our bedroom, thinking I'd take a quick shower before she got back. That's when I saw her phone on the nightstand, plugged into the charger. The screen lit up with a notification. I don't know why I picked it up. I'd never been the kind of guy to snoop through my wife's phone. Ava and I had always trusted each other, or so I thought. But something about that glowing screen, the way it seemed to beckon me, made my heart race. I unlocked it. Her passcode was Sophie's birthday, 0419. A detail that used to make me smile but now felt like a cruel irony. The notification was from a text thread with a contact saved as L. Just a single letter, no name, no photo, nothing to give it away. The message preview read, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, babe." Same place. My stomach dropped, a cold sweat breaking out on my forehead. Babe? Who the hell was calling my wife babe? I opened the thread, my hands trembling, and scrolled through the messages. There weren't many. Ava must have been deleting them regularly, but the ones that were there hit me like a freight train. "Miss you so much," one said, followed by a heart emoji. "Last weekend was incredible," another read. And then, the one that made my blood run cold. "We need to be more careful. Ethan's been asking questions." I stood there, frozen, the phone shaking in my hand as the pieces started to fall into place. Ava was cheating on me. My perfect wife, the mother of my child, the woman I'd built my life around, was sneaking around behind my back with some guy named L. I felt like I couldn't breathe, like the walls of our bedroom were closing in on me. I wanted to scream, to throw the phone against the wall, to storm out and find her, demand answers. But I didn't. I couldn't. Not yet. I needed to know more. I needed to know who L was, and why Ava was doing this to me. I heard the front door open downstairs, the familiar jingle of her keys, the click of her heels on the hardwood floor. "Ethan? You home?" she called out. Her voice bright, carefree, like she didn't have a care in the world. Like she wasn't tearing my heart apart with every word she spoke. I quickly locked her phone. set it back on the nightstand exactly as I'd found it, and took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I couldn't let her know I knew. Not yet. I needed to play this smart, to figure out the truth before I confronted her. Up here, babe. I called back, my voice sounding foreign to my own ears, strained and hollow. I heard her footsteps on the stairs, and a moment later, she appeared in the doorway, looking like a vision in her fitted black dress, her blonde hair cascading over her shoulders, her makeup flawless. She smiled at me. That same smile I'd fallen in love with 6 years ago, but now it felt like a mask, hiding the lies I knew were lurking underneath. "Hey, you're home early," she said, crossing the room to kiss me on the cheek. Her perfume, Chanel No. 5, her favorite, filled my senses, but instead of comforting me, it made me want to recoil. I forced a smile, my hands clenched into fists at my sides, hidden from her view. "Yeah, thought I'd surprise you," I said, watching her closely for any sign of guilt, any crack in her perfect facade. She didn't flinch, didn't hesitate, just laughed lightly and said, "Well, you should have texted me. I was just at Jessica's, catching up over coffee. Sophie's having a blast at her sleepover." Coffee with Jessica. Right. I nodded, pretending to buy her story, but my mind was racing. Was Jessica even real, or was she just a cover for Ava's secret rendezvous with Elle? I wanted to grab her by the shoulders, shake her, scream at her to tell me the truth, but I held back. I needed more proof, something concrete, something she couldn't deny. "Sounds fun," I said, my voice tight, and she didn't seem to notice, already turning to the mirror to touch up her lipstick, humming to herself like everything was fine. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed next to her, listening to the soft rhythm of her breathing, wondering how she could sleep so peacefully while betraying me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those messages. Heard the words, "babe," and "last weekend" was incredible echoing in my head. Who was Elle? A coworker? A client? Someone from her gym? I racked my brain, trying to think of anyone in her life whose name started with that letter, but I came up blank. And then, a thought hit me so hard I sat bolt upright, my heart pounding in my chest. Logan, my brother. His name started with L. Logan Carter, 38, my older brother, the golden child of the Carter family. He was a real estate mogul in Los Angeles, the kind of guy who owned a penthouse in Beverly Hills, drove a Porsche, and always had a model on his arm. He was single, charming, and had a reputation for being a ladies' man, something I'd always laughed off as his bachelor lifestyle. But now, that reputation took on a whole new meaning. Logan and Ava had always been close, ever since I introduced them at a family barbecue right after Ava and I started dating. They bonded over their shared love of art galleries and fine wine, things I'd never been into. I thought it was sweet, the way my brother and my girlfriend got along. But now, the memories of their late-night conversations, their inside jokes, the way Ava's eyes lit up whenever Logan came to visit, it all felt like a betrayal waiting to happen. I tried to push the thought away. No way. Not Logan. He was my brother, my blood. He'd been there for me through everything: our parents' divorce when we were kids, my college graduation, the day Sophie was born. He wouldn't do this to me. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Logan was in San Francisco just last weekend, supposedly for a business meeting. Ava had been out late that night, claiming she was at a work event. The timeline fit. The pieces fit. And the thought of my own brother sleeping with my wife, the mother of my child, made me sick to my stomach. I got out of bed, careful not to wake Ava, and went downstairs to the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of whiskey, the burn of the alcohol doing little to numb the pain in my chest. I needed proof. I couldn't confront Ava or Logan without something solid, something undeniable. I thought about hiring a private investigator, but that felt too extreme, too cliché, like something out of a bad Lifetime movie. Instead, I decided to start with something simpler: Ava's iCloud. She'd always been terrible at remembering to log out of her accounts on our shared iPad, and I knew her password, Sophie's birthday again. If there was anything else she was hiding, I'd find it there. I grabbed the iPad from the living room, my hand shaking as I logged into her iCloud account. I went straight to her messages, searching for L. But the thread was gone. She must have deleted it after I saw it earlier. I checked her photos, her emails, her calendar, anything that might give me a clue. And then I found it. Buried in her deleted emails, a confirmation for a hotel reservation at the Ritz-Carlton in San Francisco, dated last weekend. The reservation was for two, under the name Ava Carter. But the billing address was Logan's penthouse in LA. My heart stopped. It was true. My wife was cheating on me with my brother. I sat there, staring at the screen, the whiskey glass forgotten in my hand, as the reality of it all sank in. Ava and Logan, my wife and my brother, the two people I trusted most in the world, had been lying to me, sneaking around behind my back for God knows how long. And Sophie, was she even mine? The thought hit me like a punch to the gut. I'd always thought she looked like Ava, with her blonde hair and green eyes, but now I couldn't stop thinking about how much she resembled Logan. The same eyes, the same smile, the same little dimple in her cheek. I felt like I was going to be sick. I didn't know what to do, where to turn, how to handle this. Part of me wanted to wake Ava up right then and there, demand answers, scream at her until she told me the truth. But another part of me, a colder, more calculated part, knew I needed to be smart about this. I needed to know everything, to have proof that couldn't be denied before I confronted her. And Logan, he was getting married in 2 weeks to Brooke, his girlfriend of 3 years. A sweet woman who had no idea what kind of man she was about to marry. The thought of Logan standing at the altar, pretending to be a good man while he'd been sleeping with my wife, made my blood boil. I poured another glass of whiskey, my mind racing with plans, with questions, with the burning need for the truth. I wasn't going to let Ava and Logan get away with this. They betrayed me in the worst way possible, and I was going to make them pay. I didn't know how yet, but I knew one thing for sure. This was only the beginning. The storm was coming. And when it hit, it would tear our family apart. The days after I found that hotel reservation email were a blur, a haze of anger and betrayal that clung to me like a second skin. I couldn't look at Ava without seeing those messages in my head. Can't wait to see you tomorrow, babe. Last weekend was incredible. And the thought of her with Logan, my own brother, made my stomach churn. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't focus on anything but the burning need to know the truth. Was Ava really cheating on me with Logan? Was Sophie, the little girl I loved with every fiber of my being, even my daughter? I needed answers, and I needed them now. But I couldn't confront Ava, not yet. I had to be smart, to gather every piece of evidence I could before I dropped the bomb that would destroy our family. I started by digging deeper into Ava's digital footprint. She was always careless with her passwords, a habit I'd once found endearing but now saw as my ticket to the truth. I waited until she was in the shower the next morning, her phone left on the kitchen counter while she hummed some pop song under the spray of water. My hand shook as I picked it up, her passcode, Sophie's birthday, 0419, burning in my mind like a cruel joke. I opened her messages again, hoping to find the thread with L, but it was gone, just like I'd expected. Ava was careful, but not careful enough. I went at her deleted messages folder, and there it was, a single message she'd forgotten to erase. Meet me at the usual spot tonight. I need you. It was from L, sent 2 days ago. My heart pounded in my chest, a mix of rage and dread washing over me. The usual spot. That had to be the Ritz-Carlton, the same hotel from the email I'd found. Ava and Logan had a routine, a secret life I'd been too blind to see. I knew I couldn't keep snooping on her phone without risking her catching me, so I decided to take a bigger step. I logged into her iCloud account again, this time on my laptop in the guest room, where I knew she wouldn't look. I went through her calendar, her emails, her photo backups, anything that might give me a clue. That's when I found a folder buried deep in her photo backups, labeled Work Stuff. It was password protected, but I guessed the password on the third try. Sophie's name. Inside were dozens of photos. And they weren't of work stuff. They were of Ava and Logan, laughing together at a beach in Malibu, sipping cocktails at a rooftop bar in LA, kissing in what looked like a hotel room with a view of the Golden Gate Bridge. My breath caught in my throat, my vision blurring with tears as I scrolled through the images. There they were, my wife and my brother, looking happier than Ava had ever looked with me, their arms around each other, their smiles wide and carefree. One photo, dated a month before Sophie was born, showed Ava with a small baby bump, Logan's hand resting on her stomach, both of them beaming at the camera. The caption read, "Can't wait to meet our little girl." I slammed the laptop shut, my chest heaving as I fought back a scream. Sophie wasn't mine. The little girl I'd rocked to sleep every night, the one who called me daddy and drew me pictures of our family with her crayons, wasn't my daughter. She was Logan's. The realization hit me like a tidal wave, drowning me in a mix of grief and fury. I wanted to storm upstairs, drag Ava out of the shower, and make her admit everything, but I couldn't. Not yet. I needed undeniable proof, something she couldn't lie her way out of. I needed an ADN test. Getting a sample from Sophie was easier than I thought. The next morning, while Ava was out running errands, a lie I no longer believed, I took Sophie to the park near our house. She was in her little pink dress, her blonde curls bouncing as she ran to the swings, giggling and calling for me to push her. "Higher, Daddy, higher," she squealed, and I forced a smile, my heart breaking with every word. I loved her so much, more than I'd ever thought possible, and the thought that she might not be mine was killing me. But I had to know. I waited until she asked for a juice box, then used a small swab I bought online to gently swipe the inside of her cheek while she was distracted, sipping her apple juice. "What's that, Daddy?" she asked, her green eyes, so much like Logan's, looking up at me with curiosity. "Just cleaning your face, sweetheart," I lied, my voice cracking as I tucked the swab into a plastic bag. I sent the sample to a lab in San Jose, along with a cheek swab of my own, paying extra for expedited results. The wait was torture. Every day felt like an eternity. Every moment with Ava a test of my self-control. She went about her life as if nothing was wrong, laughing with Sophie at breakfast, kissing me on the cheek before bed, planning a trip to Napa for our anniversary next month. It was all an act, a performance so convincing I might have believed it if I hadn't seen the truth with my own eyes. I started noticing things I'd missed before. The way she'd jump when her phone buzzed. The way she'd quickly change the subject whenever I mentioned Logan. The way she'd started wearing more makeup. Dressing up even for casual outings. She was hiding someone, and I was determined to find out everything. While waiting for the ADN results, I decided to follow her. I took a day off work, telling Ava I had a meeting in Palo Alto, then rented a car, a gray sedan she wouldn't recognize, and parked down the street from our house. Around noon, I saw her leave. Dressed in a tight black dress and heels, her hair swept up in a way that screamed date night rather than errands. My heart sank as I followed her, keeping a safe distance as she drove across the city to the Ritz-Carlton, the same hotel from the email. I watched her park, touch up her lipstick in the rearview mirror, and walk into the lobby with a confidence that made my blood boil. I waited a few minutes, then followed her inside, my baseball cap pulled low to avoid being recognized. The lobby was bustling with guests, businessmen in suits, tourists with cameras, a bride-to-be, and her entourage giggling over champagne. I spotted Ava at the bar, sipping a martini, her eyes scanning the room. And then I saw him. Logan, my brother. He walked in wearing a tailored navy suit, his dark hair slicked back, a cocky grin on his face as he made a beeline for Ava. My fists clenched at my sides as I watched them embrace, Ava's arms wrapping around his neck, Logan's hands resting on her hips like they belonged there. They kissed a deep, passionate kiss that made my vision go red, and I had to grip the edge of a nearby chair to keep from charging over there and punching him in the face. I pulled out my phone, my hands shaking as I recorded them, capturing every moment of their betrayal. They laughed, clinked glasses, whispered to each other like a couple in love, completely oblivious to the storm brewing just a few feet away. I heard Logan say, "Brooke's got no idea about us, babe. We're good," and Ava laughed, replying, "As long as Ethan doesn't suspect anything, we're golden." I stopped recording, my chest heaving with rage. Brooke, Logan's fiancée, the woman he was supposed to marry in less than 2 weeks. She deserved to know the truth, just like I did. But I wasn't ready to tip my hand yet. I needed to be strategic, to make sure Ava and Logan paid the highest price for what they'd done to me. I left the hotel before they could spot me, my mind racing with plans. The ADN results came back 2 days later, delivered in a plain white envelope that felt like a ticking time bomb in my hands. I sat in my car, parked outside Sophie's preschool, and opened it with trembling fingers. The words on the page confirmed my worst fears. Probability of paternity, 0%. Sophie wasn't mine. She was Logan's. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the paper, tears streaming down my face as the weight of it all crashed over me. I'd lost everything: my wife, my daughter, my brother, in one devastating blow. But I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I was going to make them pay, and I knew exactly when and where to do it. Logan's wedding. The wedding was set for next Saturday at the Beverly Wilshire, a glitzy affair with 300 guests, the kind of event Logan loved to show off his wealth and status. He'd asked me to be his best man, a role I'd accepted with a forced smile, knowing it would give me the perfect platform to expose him and Ava. I started planning, gathering every piece of evidence I could, the ADN results, the hotel reservation email, the photos from Ava's iCloud, the video I'd taken at the Ritz-Carlton. I even recorded a conversation with Ava, pretending to be clueless while asking her about her work trips. Her nervous laughter and evasive answers captured perfectly on my phone. I didn't confront her, didn't let her see the storm brewing inside me. I played the part of the loving husband, kissing her goodbye every morning, reading bedtime stories to Sophie every night, all while my heart shattered with every moment I spent in their presence. Ava had no idea what was coming, and neither did Logan. They thought they'd gotten away with their affair, their lies, their betrayal, but they were wrong. I was going to burn it all down, and I was going to do it in front of everyone they cared about. As the wedding day approached, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The pain was still there, a constant ache in my chest, but it was overshadowed by a burning need for justice. I wasn't just doing this for me. I was doing it for Sophie, for Brooke, for the family Ava and Logan had destroyed with their selfishness. I packed my suit for the wedding, the ADN results and my phone tucked safely in my jacket pocket, ready to be unleashed at the perfect moment. I looked at myself in the mirror, my eyes hard with determination, and whispered to my reflection, "They're going to pay. They're all going to pay." The day of Logan's wedding arrived like a storm on the horizon, dark and inevitable, carrying with it the kind of destruction I knew would change everything. I stood in front of the mirror in our hotel room at the Beverly Wilshire, adjusting my tie with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The navy suit I wore, picked out by Ava months ago for this very occasion, felt like a costume, a disguise for the rage boiling inside me. Ava was in the bathroom, applying her makeup, humming a tune I didn't recognize, completely oblivious to the bomb I was about to drop. She looked stunning in her red satin dress, the kind of dress that turned heads, the kind of dress she'd worn to seduce my brother behind my back. I forced a smile as she emerged, her blonde hair cascading in perfect waves, her green eyes sparkling with excitement. "You look handsome, babe," she said, kissing me on the cheek, her lips leaving a faint trace of lipstick I wanted to wipe away. "Thanks," I muttered, my voice tight, my eyes avoiding hers. She didn't notice. She never did. We'd driven down to Los Angeles the day before, checking into the Beverly Wilshire with Sophie in tow. My parents had offered to watch her during the ceremony, taking her to the hotel's kids' club so Ava and I could enjoy the wedding. I'd nodded, grateful for the arrangement, knowing I didn't want Sophie anywhere near the chaos I was about to unleash. I'd spent the last 2 weeks preparing for this moment, gathering every piece of evidence I could, the ADN test results confirming Sophie wasn't mine, the hotel reservation email from the Ritz-Carlton, the photos of Ava and Logan from her iCloud, the video I'd recorded of them kissing at the hotel bar, and the audio of Ava's nervous lies when I'd casually asked about her work trips. It was all on my phone, backed up to a USB drive I'd slipped into my jacket pocket, ready to be unleashed at the perfect moment. I wasn't just going to confront Ava and Logan, I was going to destroy them, and I was going to do it in front of everyone they cared about. The Beverly Wilshire was a vision of opulence, the kind of place Logan loved to show off his wealth. The ballroom was decked out in white roses and gold accents, with crystal chandeliers casting a warm glow over the 300 guests milling about. I recognized faces from Logan's world, real estate moguls, LA socialites, a few minor celebrities he'd bragged about inviting. My parents were there, seated near the front, my mom in a pale blue dress, her eyes misty as she watched her eldest son prepare to marry Brooke. Brooke Hamilton, Logan's fiancée, was a sweet woman, a 30-year-old interior designer with a kind smile and a gentle demeanor. She didn't deserve what was coming, but she deserved the truth. They all did. As the best man, I was expected to stand by Logan's side at the altar, to smile for the photos, to give a speech about how much I admired my brother. The thought made me sick, but I played the part, shaking hands with Logan's groomsmen, laughing at their jokes, pretending everything was fine. Logan looked the picture of a perfect groom in his tailored tuxedo, his dark hair slicked back, his grin wide and confident as he clapped me on the shoulder. "You ready for this, bro?" he asked, his voice full of excitement, oblivious to the storm I was about to bring down on him. "Yeah," I said, my smile tight, my hand gripping the USB drive in my pocket. "More than you know." Ava was seated in the second row, right behind my parents, her red dress a stark contrast to the sea of pastel gowns around her. She caught my eye as I took my place at the altar. Giving me a little wave, her smile radiant. I nodded back, my stomach twisting with a mix of rage and disgust. She thought she'd gotten away with it. Thought she could keep her affair with Logan a secret while I played the clueless husband. She had no idea what was coming. The ceremony began. A string quartet playing a soft rendition of Canon in D as Brooke walked down the aisle, her white gown shimmering in the chandelier light, a veil trailing behind her. She looked beautiful. Her eyes locked on Logan, her smile full of love and hope. I felt a pang of guilt for what I was about to do, knowing it would shatter her world, but I pushed it down. She deserved to know the kind of man she was marrying, just like I deserved to know the kind of wife I had. The officiant, a middle-aged man with a warm voice, began the ceremony. His words about love and commitment ringing hollow in my ears. Logan and Brooke exchanged vows, their voices soft and earnest, promising to love and cherish each other for the rest of their lives. I clenched my jaw, my hand tightening around the USB drive, waiting for my moment. When the officiant asked, "If anyone here objects to this union, speak now or forever hold your peace." I felt the room hold its breath, the traditional question met with a ripple of nervous laughter from the guests. This was it, my moment. I stepped forward, raising my hand. My voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. "I object," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. A murmur spread through the crowd, heads turning, whispers erupting like wildfire. Logan's smile faltered, his eyes narrowing as he turned to me, his voice low and sharp. "Ethan, what the hell are you doing?" Brooke's face went pale, her bouquet trembling in her hands, her eyes darting between me and Logan. I ignored Logan, turning to face the guests, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. "I'm sorry to interrupt this beautiful moment," I began, my voice carrying over the murmurs. "But there's something everyone here needs to know. Something my brother and my wife have been hiding from me, from all of us, for years." The room fell silent, every eye on me, the tension so thick I could feel it pressing against my skin. Ava's face drained of color, her hands gripping the edge of her seat, her eyes wide with panic. She knew what was coming, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. I pulled my phone from my pocket, connecting it to the venue's AV system with the help of a tech guy I'd tipped earlier to set everything up. The screen behind the altar lit up, and I opened the first piece of evidence. The ADN test results. "This is a paternity test," I said, my voice steady, though inside I was screaming. "It proves that my daughter, Sophie, isn't mine. She's Logan's." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, my mom's hand flying to her mouth, my dad's face hardening with shock. Logan took a step toward me, his fists clenched, his voice a low growl. "Ethan, stop this right now. You're out of your mind." But I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. I swiped to the next piece of evidence, the photos from Ava's iCloud. The ones of her and Logan kissing in a hotel room, laughing on a beach, his hand on her pregnant belly. "These are photos of my wife, Ava, and my brother, Logan," I said, my voice breaking as I pointed to the screen. "They've been having an affair for years, even before Ava and I got married. They've been sneaking around, lying to me, to all of us, while I raised a child who isn't mine." The crowd erupted, gasps and whispers turning into a roar of shock and disbelief. Ava stood up, her face streaked with tears, her voice shrill as she screamed. "Ethan, stop it. You're lying. This isn't true." But her words were drowned out by the video I played next, the one I'd recorded at the Ritz-Carlton, showing her and Logan kissing at the bar, laughing, whispering to each other like a couple in love. Logan's voice came through the speakers, clear as day. "Brooke's got no idea about us, babe. We're good." Ava's laughter followed. "As long as Ethan doesn't suspect anything, we're golden." The room exploded into chaos. Brooke let out a sob, her bouquet falling to the floor as she turned to Logan, her voice trembling with rage and betrayal. "You bastard. How could you do this to me?" She ripped off her engagement ring, throwing it at Logan's chest, the diamond glinting as it hit the ground. Logan's face was a mask of fury and humiliation, his eyes darting between me and the crowd, his voice desperate as he tried to salvage the situation. Brooke, baby, I can explain. It's not what it looks like. But Brooke wasn't listening. She turned and ran down the aisle, her white dress trailing behind her. Her sobs echoing through the ballroom as her bridesmaids chased after her. Ava was on her feet now, pushing through the crowd toward me, her mascara running down her cheeks. Her voice a mix of desperation and anger. Ethan, please, stop this. You're ruining everything. I can explain. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin, but I shook her off. My voice cold as ice. Explain what, Ava? How you've been sleeping with my brother for years. How you let me raise a child who isn't mine. How you laughed behind my back while I played the fool. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out, just a choked sob as she sank to her knees, her hands covering her face. The guests were in an uproar, some shouting, others whispering. A few pulling out their phones to record the unfolding scandal. My mom was crying, her face buried in my dad's shoulder, while my dad stared at Logan with a look of pure disgust. You're a disgrace, he said, his voice low but cutting, the words slicing through the chaos like a knife. Logan turned to him, his face red with shame, his voice pleading. Dad, I didn't mean for this to happen. It was a mistake. But my dad shook his head, turning away, his silence more damning than any words. I wasn't done. I played the final piece of evidence, the audio of Ava's nervous lies when I'd asked about her work trips. Her voice filled the room, shaky and evasive. Oh, just client meetings. Nothing exciting. My voice followed, calm but pointed. Funny, because I heard you were at the Ritz-Carlton with someone last weekend. Her stammered response, what? No, that's ridiculous. Was met with a wave of murmurs from the crowd, their judgment palpable. I turned off the screen, facing the guests, my voice steady despite the tears burning in my eyes. I trusted them, I said. My words echoing through the ballroom. I love them. And they betrayed me in the worst way possible. I'm sorry you all had to see this, but I couldn't let them. The ballroom at the Beverly Wilshire was a battlefield in the aftermath of my revelation, the air thick with shock, anger, and the shattered remnants of what was supposed to be a perfect day. I stood at the altar, my chest heaving, my phone still in hand, the screen dark but the echoes of Ava and Logan's betrayal still reverberating through the room. The guests were a chaotic mix of emotions, some whispering furiously to each other, others openly crying, a few still recording the scandal on their phones, their faces a mix of horror and fascination. Brooke was gone, her white dress a fleeting blur as she'd fled the scene, leaving behind a trail of heartbreak and a diamond ring that lay discarded on the floor. Logan stood a few feet away, his face a mask of fury and humiliation, his fists clenched as if he wanted to hit me, but didn't dare. Ava was on her knees in the aisle, her red dress pooling around her like blood, her hands covering her face as she sobbed, her voice a broken wail. Ethan, please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I felt nothing. No pity, no remorse, no love. The woman I'd once adored, the woman I'd built my life around, was a stranger to me now. Her tears, her pleas, her desperation, they meant nothing in the face of what she'd done. She'd slept with my brother, given him a child, and let me raise that child as my own, all while laughing behind my back. And Logan, my own flesh and blood, the brother I'd looked up to my whole life, had stood by her side. Build a life with her in the shadows, while pretending to be the perfect son, the perfect fiancé, the perfect man. They'd both played me for a fool, and now they were paying the price. The officiant, a middle-aged man who'd been frozen in shock during my speech, finally found his voice, clearing his throat awkwardly. I think we should take a moment to, but he didn't get to finish. My dad stood up from the front row, his face a storm of rage and disappointment, his voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. Enough, he said, his eyes locked on Logan. You've disgraced this family, Logan. You and Ava both. I can't even look at you right now. My mom, still crying, clutched his arm, her voice trembling as she whispered, how could you do this to us? To Ethan? To Sophie? Logan opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out, just a choked sound of frustration as he ran a hand through his hair, his perfect groom persona crumbling before everyone's eyes. Ava's sobs grew louder, her hands reaching for me as she stumbled to her feet, her mascara-streaked face a mess of desperation. Ethan, please, let me explain, she begged, her voice raw. I never meant for this to happen. I love you, I swear I do. He was a mistake. It was just a stupid fling, and then Sophie came. And I didn't know how to tell you. Her words trailed off as she saw the look in my eyes. Cold, unyielding, devoid of the warmth she'd once taken for granted. A mistake, I repeated, my voice low and dangerous, each word dripping with venom. You've been sleeping with my brother for years, Ava. You had his child, and let me believe she was mine. You lied to me every single day, and you call that a mistake? I took a step toward her, my voice rising, the anger I'd held back for weeks finally breaking free. You didn't just betray me, you betrayed Sophie. You betrayed our family. And for what? For some cheap thrill with a man who was supposed to be my brother. The guests were silent now, their eyes darting between me, Ava, and Logan. The tension in the room so thick it felt like a physical weight. Ava shook her head, her hands wringing together, her voice a desperate plea. I was scared, Ethan. I didn't know how to tell you. I thought if I just kept it a secret, we could be happy. I didn't want to lose you. Her words were a knife to my heart, twisting deeper with every syllable. You didn't want to lose me? I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound that echoed through the ballroom. You lost me the moment you let Logan touch you, Ava. You lost me the moment you decided to live a lie. Logan finally found his voice, stepping forward with a scowl, his face red with a mix of shame and defiance. Ethan, you've made your point, okay? You've humiliated us in front of everyone. Just stop. Let's talk about this in private, like adults. His tone was condescending, as if I were a child throwing a tantrum, and it lit a fire in me I couldn't control. Like adults. I snapped. Turning to face him, my fists clenched at my sides. You mean the way you acted like an adult when you slept with my wife? When you let me raise your daughter as my own? When you stood there, pretending to be the perfect groom, while you were screwing my family over? I took a step closer, my voice a low growl. You don't get to tell me what to do, Logan. Not after what you've done. Logan's eyes flashed with anger, his jaw tightening as he took a step toward me, his voice a hiss. You think you're so perfect, Ethan? Always the good guy, the loyal husband, the doting dad. But maybe if you'd paid more attention to Ava, she wouldn't have come to me. His words were a punch to the gut, a cheap shot meant to hurt, and it worked. For a moment, I saw red. My vision narrowing to the smug look on his face, the face of the brother I'd once idolized. Before I could stop myself, I lunged at him. My fist connecting with his jaw in a satisfying crack that sent him stumbling back. The crowd gasped, a few men rushing forward to pull us apart as Logan clutched his face, his eyes wide with shock. You bastard, he shouted, but I didn't care. I wanted to hit him again, to keep hitting him until he felt even a fraction of the pain he'd caused me, but strong hands held me back. Voices shouting for calm. Ava screamed, rushing to Logan's side, her hands hovering over him as if she could protect him from the mess they created. Stop it, both of you, she cried. Her voice a mix of fear and frustration. This isn't helping anyone. I shook off the hands holding me, my chest heaving as I glared at her, my voice a snarl. Don't you dare act like you care, Ava. You did this. You and Logan. You brought this on yourselves. She flinched at my words, her tears starting anew, but I felt no sympathy. She'd made her choices. And now she had to live with the consequences. The chaos in the ballroom was reaching a fever pitch, guests shouting over each other, some leaving in disgust, others still filming the drama unfolding before them. I caught sight of my parents, my mom sobbing into my dad's shoulder, my dad's face a mask of fury as he stared at Logan. Get out, he said suddenly, his voice booming over the noise, his eyes locked on Logan and Ava. Both of you, you're not welcome here anymore. Logan's face fell, his bravado crumbling as he realized the full weight of what he'd lost. Not just Brooke, but his family, his reputation, everything he'd worked for. Ava looked at my parents, her voice a broken whisper. Margaret, please. I'm so sorry. But my mom turned away, her shoulders shaking with sobs, unable to even look at her. I didn't stick around to see them leave. I couldn't. The sight of Ava and Logan together, even in disgrace, was too much. I pushed through the crowd, ignoring the whispers, the pitying looks, the hands reaching out to stop me. I needed air. Needed to get away from the wreckage of my life that I'd just laid bare for the world to see. I made my way to the hotel's rooftop terrace. The cool night air hitting me like a slap as I stepped outside, the city lights of Los Angeles glittering below me. I leaned against the railing. my hands gripping the metal so hard my knuckles turned white, my breath coming in ragged gasps as the reality of it all crashed over me. I'd done it. I'd exposed Ava and Logan, humiliated them in front of everyone, made them pay for what they'd done. But it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a hollow, aching void, a gaping wound where my family used to be. Sophie wasn't mine. The little girl I'd loved with every piece of my heart, the one who called me Daddy and drew me pictures of our family, was Logan's daughter. The thought brought fresh tears to my eyes, a sob escaping my throat as I sank to my knees, the weight of it all too much to bear. I'd lost everything, my wife, my brother, my daughter, in one devastating blow. And for what? Revenge? Justice? It didn't bring Sophie back to me. It didn't erase the years of lies, the betrayal that had torn my world apart. I don't know how long I sat there, the city lights blurring through my tears, the sounds of the wedding fading into a distant hum. At some point, I heard footsteps behind me, soft and hesitant. And I turned to see Brooke standing there, her white dress stained with mascara tears, her veil clutched in her hands. She looked as broken as I felt, her eyes red and puffy, her voice barely above a whisper. "Ethan," she said, her voice trembling. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I swear I didn't." I nodded, my throat too tight to speak, and she took a step closer, her hands twisting the veil nervously. "I thought Logan loved me," she continued, her voice cracking. "I thought he was a good man. But he's a monster. And Ava, how could they do this to us?" I stood up, wiping my eyes with the back of my hand, my voice hoarse as I finally spoke. "I don't know, Brooke. I've been asking myself the same thing for weeks. But they did. And now we're the ones left to pick up the pieces." She nodded, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks, and for a moment, we just stood there, two broken souls bound by the same betrayal, the same pain. "What are you going to do now?" she asked, her voice small, and I shook my head, the question echoing in my mind like a drumbeat. What was I going to do now? "I'm going to divorce Ava," I said finally, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. "I can't stay with her after this. And I'm going to fight for Sophie, even if she's not mine. I've raised her for 4 years. I'm her dad in every way that matters. I won't let Ava and Logan take her from me." Brooke nodded, her eyes filled with a mix of admiration and sadness. "You're a good man, Ethan," she said softly. "Better than Logan ever was. Sophie's lucky to have you." Her words brought a fresh wave of tears to my eyes, but I blinked them back, forcing a small smile. "Thanks, Brooke. And I'm sorry about the wedding. I didn't want to hurt you. But you deserve to know the truth." She nodded, her lips trembling as she tried to smile back. "I know, and I'm glad you did. I need some time to figure things out." She turned to leave, then paused, looking back at me over her shoulder. "If you ever need to talk, I'm here." I nodded, grateful for her kindness, and watched as she disappeared back into the hotel, her white dress a stark reminder of the day that had gone so horribly wrong. I stayed on the rooftop for a while longer, trying to make sense of the chaos that had become my life. I knew the road ahead would be hard. Divorcing Ava, fighting for Sophie, rebuilding my relationship with my parents, dealing with the fallout of the scandal that was already spreading like wildfire on social media. I'd seen the videos posted online, the headlines screaming about the Beverly Hills wedding scandal, the comments calling Ava and Logan every name in the book. Part of me felt a grim satisfaction knowing they couldn't escape the consequences of their actions. But another part of me just felt empty. I'd lost so much, and I didn't know if I'd ever be whole again. But I wasn't going to let them win. I'd fight for Sophie, for my future, for the life I deserved. Ava and Logan had taken enough from me. They weren't going to take my daughter, my dignity, or my chance at happiness. I stood up, taking a deep breath. The city lights below me a reminder that life went on, even after the worst betrayals. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but I knew one thing for sure. I was done being the fool. From now on, I was in control. The weeks following Logan's wedding, or what was supposed to be his wedding, were a whirlwind of chaos, pain, and a strange, quiet resolve that grew inside me with each passing day. The scandal had exploded beyond the ballroom at the Beverly Wilshire, spreading like wildfire across social media, local news outlets, and even a few tabloids that loved a good Beverly Hills wedding disaster story. Videos of my speech, the ADN results, Ava and Logan's affair, all of it, was dissected by strangers online. Their comments a mix of sympathy for me, outrage at Ava and Logan, and morbid fascination with the drama that had torn my family apart. I tried to ignore it, to focus on what mattered, Sophie. My future, rebuilding the life they'd shattered, but the constant notifications on my phone, the whispers from coworkers at my tech startup in Silicon Valley, the pitying looks from neighbors in our San Francisco suburb made it impossible to escape. Ava had moved out the day after the wedding, packing a single suitcase while I was at my parents' house with Sophie. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter, her handwriting shaky, the paper stained with what I assumed were tears. "Ethan, I know I've hurt you in ways I can never fix," it read. "I'm so sorry for everything. I'm staying with a friend for now. Please don't hate me forever. I love you, even if you don't believe me. Ava." I crumpled the note in my fist, tossing it into the trash without a second thought. Her words meant nothing to me now. Love? She didn't know the meaning of the word. Love didn't lie, didn't betray, didn't let you raise another man's child while laughing behind your back. Love didn't destroy a family. I didn't hate her, not anymore. I felt nothing for her, and that was worse. Logan, on the other hand, I still hated with a fire that burned deep in my chest. He'd tried to call me a few times after the wedding, leaving voicemails that ranged from angry, "You ruined my life, Ethan. How could you do this to me?" to pleading, "I'm sorry, okay? Let's talk. We're brothers. We can fix this." I deleted every message without responding, blocking his number after the third one. He wasn't my brother anymore. He was a stranger, a traitor, a man who'd taken everything from me and expected forgiveness because we shared the same blood. My parents felt the same way. They hadn't spoken to Logan since the wedding, their silence a condemnation louder than any words. My mom, Margaret, still cried every time Sophie's name came up. Her guilt over not seeing the signs of Ava and Logan's affair eating her alive. My dad, Robert, was stoic, his anger a quiet storm that simmered beneath the surface. But I saw the pain in his eyes every time he looked at me, the knowledge that his two sons were now strangers to each other. The first order of business was the divorce. I'd hired a lawyer the day after the wedding, a sharp woman named Rachel Nguyen who specialized in high-conflict family law cases. She'd taken one look at the evidence I'd gathered, the ADN results, the photos, the video, the audio, and told me I had an airtight case for a fault-based divorce. Adultery, emotional distress, fraud, you name it, we've got it, she'd said. Her voice brisk but empathetic. "We'll make sure Ava doesn't get a dime more than she's legally entitled to, and we'll fight for custody of Sophie." Custody was my biggest concern. Sophie wasn't biologically mine, a fact that still brought tears to my eyes every time I thought about it, but I'd raised her for 4 years. I was her dad in every way that mattered. Her first word had been Dada. Her first steps had been into my arms. Her favorite bedtime story was the one I'd read to her every night since she was a baby. I couldn't lose her, not after losing everything else. Ava didn't contest the divorce, which surprised me. I'd expected her to fight, to drag things out, to make my life even more of a living hell than she already had. But when Rachel served her the papers, Ava signed them without a word, agreeing to a no-fault divorce that left her with nothing but a small settlement, enough to cover her legal fees and a few months' rent. Rachel told me Ava had looked broken when they met. Her eyes red from crying, her voice barely above a whisper as she'd said, "Tell Ethan I'm sorry. I won't fight him. He deserves to be happy." I didn't care about her apologies, her regret, her tears. She'd had 6 years to be honest with me, to tell me the truth about Logan, about Sophie, and she'd chosen to lie. Her remorse now was too little, too late. The custody battle, however, was another story. Ava didn't fight for much in the divorce, but she fought for Sophie with a ferocity I hadn't expected. "She's my daughter," Ava had argued in court, her voice trembling as she stood before the judge, a stern woman named Judge Ellis who'd seen her fair share of messy family law cases. "I know I made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but I'm her mother. Ethan isn't her biological father, and he has no legal claim to her." Her words were a knife to my heart, each one cutting deeper than the last. I sat in the courtroom, my hands clenched into fists under the table, my lawyer Rachel at my side, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the storm raging inside me. Rachel stood up, her voice steady and commanding as she addressed the judge. "Your Honor, while it's true that Ethan Carter is not Sophie's biological father, he has been her primary caregiver for her entire life. He's the one who's been there for her, every doctor's appointment, every bedtime story, every milestone. Ava Carter, on the other hand, has demonstrated a pattern of deceit and instability, engaging in a long-term affair with Ethan's brother, Logan Carter, and concealing the true paternity of Sophie from Ethan for 4 years. This deception not only caused Ethan immense emotional distress, but also put Sophie's emotional well-being at risk. Ethan has been Sophie's father in every way that matters. Tried to argue that Ava had been a loving mother despite her mistakes, but his words fell flat. Judge Ellis listened carefully, her eyes moving between me and Ava, her expression unreadable. When she finally spoke, her voice was firm but compassionate. This is a difficult case, one that involves a great deal of pain and betrayal. But my primary concern is the best interest of the child. Mr. Carter, while you are not Sophie's biological father, you have demonstrated a consistent and loving presence in her life. Ms. Carter, your actions, while perhaps not malicious in intent, have caused significant harm to your family, and your deception raises serious concerns about your judgment as a parent. I'm awarding primary custody of Sophie Carter to Ethan Carter, with supervised visitation rights for Ava Carter to be reviewed in 6 months. I felt a wave of relief crash over me, my shoulders sagging as I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Rachel squeezed my hand under the table, a small smile on her face, while Ava let out a choked sob, her hands covering her face as her lawyer tried to comfort her. I didn't look at her. I couldn't. I'd won, but it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a necessary step, a way to protect Sophie from the chaos Ava had created. I knew Ava loved Sophie, in her own flawed way, but I couldn't trust her to put Sophie's needs first, not after everything she'd done. After the hearing, I drove straight to my parents' house to pick up Sophie, my heart pounding with a mix of joy and apprehension. She was playing in the backyard when I arrived, her blonde curls bouncing as she ran toward me, her little arms outstretched. "Daddy," she squealed, throwing herself into my arms, and I held her tight, tears stinging my eyes as I buried my face in her hair. "Hey, sweetheart," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "Daddy's here." My mom watched from the porch, her eyes misty as she smiled at us, her relief mirroring my own. I knew this wasn't the end of the fight. Ava would likely appeal the custody decision, and Logan might try to assert his parental rights at some point. But for now, Sophie was mine, and that was all that mattered. The next challenge was Logan. I hadn't seen him since the wedding, hadn't spoken to him since I'd blocked his number. But I knew I couldn't avoid him forever. He showed up at my house unannounced one evening, 2 months after the custody hearing, his Porsche parked crookedly in my driveway, his face haggard as he stood on my doorstep. He looked like a shadow of the man he'd once been. His suit was wrinkled, his hair unkempt, his eyes bloodshot as if he hadn't slept in days. "Ethan," he said, his voice rough, his hands raised in a gesture of surrender. "Please, we need to talk." I wanted to slam the door in his face, to tell him to go to hell. But something in his expression, desperation, maybe, or genuine remorse, made me pause. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me so Sophie, who was coloring in the living room, wouldn't hear us. "What do you want, Logan?" I asked, my voice cold, my arms crossed over my chest. He ran a hand through his hair, his eyes darting away before meeting mine again. I owe you an apology," he said, his voice trembling. "I messed up, Ethan. I messed up bad. I never should have with Ava. I don't know what I was thinking. I was selfish, stupid, and I hurt you in ways I can't even begin to understand. I'm so sorry." His words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of everything we'd lost. I wanted to believe him, wanted to think he was capable of remorse, but the wounds were too fresh, the betrayal too deep. "Sorry doesn't fix this, Logan," I said, my voice steady despite the anger simmering inside me. "You slept with my wife. You let me raise your daughter as my own, knowing she wasn't mine. You stood there at your wedding, pretending to be a good man, while you were stabbing me in the back. Do you have any idea what that did to me? To Mom and Dad? To Sophie?" My voice cracked on her name, the pain of it all rushing back, and Logan flinched, his eyes filling with tears. "I know," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I know I can't fix it, but I want to try. I want to be in Sophie's life, if you'll let me. I'm her father, Ethan. I know I don't deserve it, but I want to do right by her." His words were a slap in the face, A reminder of the one truth I couldn't escape. Sophie was his daughter, not mine. But I'd be damned if I let him waltz in and take her from me after everything he'd done. You don't get to decide that, I said, my voice a low growl. You lost the right to call yourself her father the moment you chose to hide the truth. I've been her dad for 4 years. I'm the one who's been there for her, not you. If you want to be in her life, you'll have to prove you're not the selfish bastard you've been for the last 6 years. And even then, it's not up to me, it's up to Sophie, when she's old enough to understand. Logan nodded, his shoulders slumping, his face a mask of defeat. I understand, he said quietly. I'll give you space. But I'm not giving up, Ethan. I want to make this right. He turned to leave, then paused, looking back at me with a flicker of hope in his eyes. For what it's worth. I miss you. You're my brother, and I hate what I've done to us. I didn't respond. Just watched as he got into his car and drove away, the sound of his engine fading into the night. I didn't know if I'd ever forgive him, some wounds cut too deep, but a small part of me, buried beneath the anger, hoped he'd at least try to be a better man for Sophie's sake. Ava was a different story. I saw her one last time, a month after Logan's visit. During her first supervised visitation with Sophie, the court had arranged for the visit to take place at a family center in Oakland, a neutral space with social workers on hand to ensure everything went smoothly. I drove Sophie there myself, my heart heavy as I watched her clutch her favorite stuffed bunny, her little face full of confusion. Why can't Mommy come home, Daddy? She'd asked on the way, her green eyes, so much like Logan's, looking up at me with a trust that broke my heart. I'd forced a smile, brushing a curl from her forehead. Mommy needs some time to figure things out, sweetheart, I'd said, the lie tasting bitter on my tongue. But she loves you. And she's so excited to see you today. Ava was waiting in the visitation room, her appearance a stark contrast to the glamorous woman I'd once known. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, her face free of makeup, her eyes red and puffy from crying. She wore a simple sweater and jeans, her hands twisting nervously in her lap as we entered. When she saw Sophie, her face lit up, a sob escaping her as she opened her arms. Sophie, baby, she cried, and Sophie ran to her, burying her face in Ava's shoulder as Ava held her tight, tears streaming down her cheeks. I missed you so much, Ava whispered, kissing Sophie's forehead, her voice trembling with emotion. I stood by the door, my arms crossed, my jaw tight as I watched them. The social worker, a kind woman named Maria, gave me a reassuring nod, but I couldn't relax. Seeing Ava with Sophie brought back a flood of memories, good ones, from the early days of our marriage, when I'd thought we were happy, and painful ones, from the moment I discovered the truth. Ava looked up at me, her eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and sorrow. Thank you, Ethan, she said softly, her voice barely audible, for letting me see her. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak, and turned to leave, giving them their time together. The visit lasted an hour, and when I returned to pick Sophie up, Ava was waiting for me in the hallway. Her hands clasped in front of her, her expression hesitant. Ethan, she said, her voice trembling. Can we talk? Just for a minute. I wanted to say no, to walk away and never look back. But something in her eyes, a raw, desperate honesty I hadn't seen in years, made me nod. We stepped into a small waiting room, the social worker keeping an eye on Sophie as she played with some toys in the corner. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, Ava began, her voice shaking as she looked down at her hands. What I did to you, to Sophie, to our family, it's unforgivable. I was selfish and stupid, and I let myself get caught up in something I never should have. Logan, he was an escape, a fantasy, but it was never real. I loved you, Ethan. I still do. But I know I've lost you, and I have to live with that. She paused, wiping her eyes with the sleeve of her sweater, her voice breaking as she continued. I want you to know that I'm going to therapy. I'm trying to be better, for Sophie's sake. I don't expect you to believe me, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to make up for what I've done. I listened in silence, my heart a tangle of emotions I couldn't unravel. Part of me wanted to lash out, to tell her that her apologies meant nothing, that she destroyed everything I'd ever loved. But another part of me, a small, tired part, saw the woman I'd once loved, broken and lost, trying to find her way back. I don't know if I'll ever forgive you, Ava, I said finally, my voice low but steady. But for Sophie's sake, I hope you mean what you say. She deserves a mother who can put her first, who can be honest, who can give her the love she needs. If you can't be that person, then stay out of her life. Ava nodded, tears streaming down her face. Her voice a whisper. I will, Ethan. I promise. That was the last time I saw Ava for a while. She kept to the visitation schedule, slowly rebuilding her relationship with Sophie under the watchful eye of the social workers, and I focused on being the best dad I could be. Sophie adjusted to the new normal with a resilience that amazed me, her laughter and love a balm for the wounds that still lingered. Logan, true to his word, didn't push to be in Sophie's life right away, but he sent her birthday cards and gifts, small gestures that I allowed for her sake, though I wasn't ready to let him back into our lives. A year after the wedding, I sold the house in San Francisco, the memories of Ava and our broken marriage too heavy to bear. Sophie and I moved to a small town in Oregon. A quiet place with a big backyard where she could play, a good school, and a community that didn't know our story. I took a remote job with a new tech company, giving me the flexibility to be there for Sophie's school plays, soccer games, and bedtime stories. My parents visited often, their love for Sophie a constant in her life. And Brooke, Logan's ex-fiancée, became an unexpected friend. Her own journey of healing mirroring mine in ways I